We're just going to do a little quick review of the COMA Cora and social media and other things for you tonight. I know this will be a review for some of you, but the importance of it is high. So just a quick start with the Kansas Open Records Act, and this is really something that you do not need to worry about. Just going to tell you that off the bat. Sorry. Oh, okay.
Sorry, I could have got that for you.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, I have to because I'm not sitting there. I don't have the computer.
Just click. You don't need.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry. Okay, so there's a statute that really has to do with Kansas Open Records Act, and basically it's just for your promotes transparency to the public and for access to critical information. And there are numerous exceptions to this, and we're not going to get into all of those. But anything that is a public record is really defined as any recorded information that is in the possession of somebody that is in the public. So you are considered public because you hold office. Anything that the city staff is, that would also be because we work for a public entity. Now, the one thing that it does not include are, like, if you decide to have a file that you want to keep of all your agenda packets and that kind of stuff, and you want to make notes on it, that is not a public record because that is just for you, okay? If you decide to have a file on economic development or something like that, that is just your file, so that would not be in there. But if you would have an email with city staff regarding city business, that is searchable or that is requestable for anybody. So just note what you put in some of that stuff, or anything that would be you don't want on the front page. That would be that you sent to city staff. That would probably be the best thing advice we could give you. And anything that gets mentioned in the meeting, so if the staff would have handed out something to you in an executive session and you have made reference to that in a meeting, that is now public record. Even if it was confidential, that now is public record. So most of you won't ever get a request for public records, and that usually comes to staff. If anybody inquires about something, we would request that you just get in touch with myself or Chris, because we will handle that, because we are the ones, we have a certain deadline that we have to meet with getting that stuff, and there might be a cost for some of that as well. And that's the gist of that.
Jump in on mine.
Okay.
All right, I'm going to be covering the COMA component of this presentation, and obviously jump in with, sure. I'm going to be covering the COMA portion of this presentation. Jump in with any questions. We can make it a dialogue, obviously. We're going to go over the underlying policy of the COMA, the entities that are covered by COMA, the definition of a meeting, which is probably the most important thing you'll do in terms of your analysis of understanding when COMA applies. We're going to talk about serial meetings. We're going to talk about exceptions to the COMA, the penalties, and then we have a few scenarios. Underlying policy. Oh, did I go backwards? Okay. COMA was originally enacted in 1972. It's been on the books since that time. There have been various amendments through that time. Overall, the general policy behind it is we don't take binding action by a secret ballot or outside of what's a public meeting, right? And we'll talk about executive sessions in the meeting. There are certain things that can be done outside of an open and public meeting, but the general default and general public policy is that meetings occur in the public. The underlying policy supports public access. The public has a right to know what is going on at a public meeting involving the use of tax dollars. On this final bullet, meetings must be open to the public and advance notice provided to those requesting notice. So Denise can talk a little bit about this, but I will tell you that we go above and beyond in terms of what that bare minimum. So if you look at what the statutory requirements are for COMA, anyone that signs up to be informed of when is the city commission having a meeting, Denise will let them know there's a meeting tonight, tonight's a meeting, at 5:30 at City Commission. Now, that being said, we still put it on the website, we talk about it, we put it out on social media. We go well above that standard, but I don't know if, Denise, if you want to talk about that list and how you
Yeah,
do it.
we receive a list from our, we ask people at the end of the year if they would still want to receive all the information. We send it to all the public entities like North Newton, blah, 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 all of those. And then like Lori Hartke does not have social media, so she requests every year that we send her a paper copy. So on Fridays, we put a paper copy in the mail to her. But we notify all of them, plus we have to notify the press anytime you guys get together.
Yeah. So under the COMA, the meaning of open is essentially that it's in an open environment, and that means the public is allowed to listen to the discussion. We've talked about this too, where I think the city probably goes above and beyond in terms of like citizens forum. I think that we go above and beyond where a commissioner, you guys will have an item that doesn't require a public hearing. There'll be someone in the back row, hey, I want to say something about that. Do they have a right to? Absolutely not. Typically, this commission does say, come on up and talk about it. But the general public has the right to hear it, hear the conversations. They don't necessarily have the right statutorily to have a voice at the discussion, absent something that is a required public hearing. And we're pretty clear on a staff level to let you know, hey, this is a required public hearing. You need to formally open it up, give everyone a chance to speak. But otherwise, on a typical item, there isn't necessarily that requirement, but that's not staff saying don't provide it. We can go above and beyond on that.
Technically, the commission meeting is a meeting of the governing body. It is not a meeting with the public. So you technically wouldn't have to allow any comment because it is a business meeting of the governing body. But we do.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, we can, right?
Oh, yeah. Oh,
can.
definitely. I'm just saying,
Okay.
there are instances that maybe there are councils and that kind of stuff that don't allow public to speak, and they do not have to, unless it's a public hearing.
Yeah, I think staff would say we can and we should. We just don't have to under the COMA. We just need to afford them the ability to be here and listen to the meeting. We put in this case Stevens versus Hutchinson. It stood for a couple things that really substantial compliance with COMA. They're not necessarily looking for a technical violation. That being said, and I think it's a theme on multiple slides, we do try and go above and beyond. We've implemented the scripts that you see for executive session to try and set forth a record for the requirements therein. We don't want too casual of a motion that could be deemed to be a violation of COMA. But I think in that case, it talked about substantial compliance, not looking for a technical violation, but also what we were talking about before of being open, that it needs to be in a spot where the public can attend and participate. Okay, so if we talk about who the COMA applies to, a public group, body, or agency, and again, City Commission applies, Planning Commission, essentially all of your subordinate groups we consider to be in compliance with COMA, so we follow all those formalities. Same thing, Denise, if someone wants to know about all of our Planning Commission meetings, she's going to notify them. We do hold them open. We follow all of those rules. So typically, if these 5 commissioners, it's not really going to be an issue about does COMA apply because your role as commissioner, clearly it does. It's going to really tee on was it a meeting. And I covered that. Again, we've taken a liberal approach. Aviation Commission doesn't deal with public funds. There may be an argument that the COMA doesn't apply. We've taken the approach it clearly does. They do advise this body and the county commission. And again, erring on the side of openness, just like with the CORA. So this is where you will want to make sure you understand the concepts of the COMA and specifically a meeting, how it's defined under COMA. And essentially there's 3 main elements. It's a gathering or assembly, and it can be either in person, it can be by phone, it could be by any other means of interactive communication, conducted by a quorum of the membership. So here, obviously, we have 5. A quorum is 3. And then for the purpose of discussing the business or affairs of the public body or agency. And absent some exceptions and serial meetings that we'll talk to, that simple test will solve most of your coma issues. If it's less than 3, we don't have a quorum. If you don't have a meeting, obviously you don't have a meeting. And if you're not talking about city business, it doesn't fall under. And we'll talk about that in some of the scenarios. The 5 of you together talking non-city business is not a meeting under the coma. I think it looks bad. I think the optics are bad. I think you have some concern there. But if we're not talking city business, it's not a meeting under the coma, okay?
That's why we will notice up, like when you have the socials that you get invited to, say the Republican Party or the Democratic Party, whatever those are, we just notice those up and saying there will be a number of them where business could be discussed. That way we just kind of cover ourselves so we are not in violation.
And I would go back to that test. Don't get caught up in how we label the meeting. We have regular meetings. This is a work session. There could be a special meeting, executive session, work session, retreat. It doesn't matter how you label it. Go back to that test in terms of those 3 elements. There's a note in terms of the interactive discussion. If you have those 3 elements, you don't need to vote on anything. You don't need to make a determination for it still to be a meeting under the coma. So as long as you have those 3 elements, it's a meeting. Denise has to notice up anyone that needs to be aware, and we need to make it available to the public. Note that interactive communication, obviously we talked about how, the coma came out in the 70s, and some of these things have evolved in terms of email, social media. You can have a meeting on social media through email if you have those same elements. If it's 3 members that are going to be discussing city business, you can form a meeting. So don't think that, okay, we're not having a formal face-to-face, so I'm outside of the coma. It can occur virtually. Go ahead.
Just for technical purposes, if we would have a live or like a virtual meeting and it's noticed up and people are able to tune in, would that meet the standard?
Yes, we can do that. Okay. Exactly. As long as
it couldn't be, it has to be at that moment. It couldn't be like available
after the fact would not be good.
Then it's not. It has to be open at that moment.
And I think we can go back to like the COVID times, I think, where we would even open up City Hall for someone that might not have access to computers. Is that how we did it, to make it accessible to all, as I recall?
Well, yeah.
There were times during COVID when we were completely virtual.
Completely virtual.
A few meetings. Later on in the year, we started opening up City Hall, and we had every other chair blocked off and that sort of thing.
Room across the way had
Yes,
audio.
we had overflow space. But yeah, we definitely did do completely virtual via Zoom meetings during COVID. And it was noticed up to the public, and anyone could tune in to watch.
Yeah.
And they did have some special guidance at that time as well. But yeah, really, it's just making it accessible to all. I think if it was at this time, if you wanted to do some sort of virtual meeting, we would make it available to someone here at City Hall to still view it in person, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Just to,
I'm just curious,
again, make it open.
The physical presence, if you're required to, how that works. If we're meeting in person, then they have to be allowed to meet in person as well?
They have to be a part of that
be able
meeting
to
and
be
be able to
here,
listen
yeah.
to it, right?
And it could be solved any number of ways.
Yeah.
We could have a phone number that they could call and just listen to
Oh,
the audio
that would be
portion
enough,
of
right.
it.
Okay.
I mean, it could be solved in any number of
Yeah,
ways.
okay.
It's been some time, but we've also had big issues where there's more people that could fit in this room. And I think that we have a duty under the coma to go have it at the high school or the Meridian Center or allow overflow. And we've taken those steps too. We got to be reasonably accessible. So we wouldn't want to have it with a too small of a capacity. You guys know this, just involving a quorum. So obviously with this body of 5, it would be 3. 2 can talk business. It's not a meeting. It's not a problem. Obviously, beware. We'll talk about serial meetings later, but it's not a meeting with 2. It is with 3.
Provided you don't stop and then go talk another 2 and another.
Absolutely, yeah. Because if it starts at 2 and goes to 3, then exactly, we'll have a serial meeting
Or through a proxy.
or through a proxy for sure. Go ahead.
I just want to say that, make a little funny, that when I first started and we had to, do that, I kept thinking, these guys are not trying to, have anything to do with me and all that.
Sure.
It feels
Why don't they wanna
really
meet?
Later
strange.
realized that,
Right.
Yeah.
okay,
It
we
feels
can't
really
have those,
strange.
Yeah.
can't be talking amongst each other during the times when we're together.
Right.
So it was, I don't know, I thought it was funny, so.
For sure. There's like a few additional requirements here. I think we talked about the notice part. Use of cameras, photography, as long as it's not a distraction, is permissible. Yeah, there is a new change in terms of if you're going to live stream the meeting, it has to be the entire meeting. I think some cities were pulling out citizens forum to not broadcast it. Now it's a rule that if you're going to show it, you got to show the entire version.
Are media cameras always?
As long as it's not a distraction, it's permissible. And Aaron's
Applies
on
to
the
both.
front line in terms of coordinating that anytime we have more media than normal.
Okay.
Does that change the recommendation for stating name and address during the public forum? If it's live streamed, the risk?
I don't know. I mean, I think through a lot of the public business we do, there's a lot of names and I guess personal information that comes out in a meeting. We've been doing that for so long. It's always been a part of the record. I mean, it's always been a part of the minutes, which has been online, that Steve Smith from 123 Main came and spoke. It's just in a different medium now.
But some people don't always give that information anymore either when you ask for them to state their name and address. Some of them just refuse to do. And
Yeah, and I
that's
think we
their-
still obviously let them speak. We don't
Oh,
take a
yeah,
hard line that
yeah.
you need to provide it.
And
but
then
we do ask.
I do not, if they don't provide me an address, I do not put it in the minutes.
Prior legislatively, in terms of the coma, a chance meeting would fall outside of the coma. So if three commissioners just happen to bump into each other and have a meeting, it was out, they've kind of cleaned that up. So it doesn't matter if three of you happen to run into each other and discuss city business, we've got a coma issue. Colorado Mountain Retreat, obviously it needs to be accessible to the public. Having it out of state isn't reasonable. I know you guys are gonna obviously do, your retreat. That'll be an open public meeting that's available to the public. It's still here in the city and all those things. Same thing Denise talked about, like some of these league meetings, we will go above and beyond to notice up, hey, there's gonna be 5 commissioners at this league meeting and they're gonna be talking about maybe city issues, maybe not Newton issues, but city issues. We'll still notice it up. But if there isn't that interactive communication, it's going to fall short of being a coma and it's going to be outside anyway. Note that the AG has issued 12 coma enforcement actions since 2020. And
Within the last 6 months, I think.
And if you guys have questions about those, they have a database and it shows the decisions and the findings and the reasons that they broke.
And they all get to sit in on training with the AG's office, a whole day of training.
The whole day?
And there might be a fine, and I think they've waived the fines on 2 of those, but one of them was just all through cell phone that they did everything. They took a vote.
Okay, so serial meetings. This is exactly what Leroy was talking about. This is where prior to 2008, there wasn't a provision in the coma that addressed it, but now there is. So a serial meeting is a series of meetings, and we've laid out the 6 requirements of what makes a serial meeting. So first, it's a series of interactive communications, so not just one, that collectively involve a majority. So remember, you need to get to 3 for this body. Share a common topic concerning the business or affairs of a public body. And then this is the one that makes it a little different. Intended by any or all of the participants to reach an agreement. And then also I'll add on a matter that requires binding action. But on 5, intended by any or all of the participants to reach an agreement. That is not a requirement under the simple coma rules. You do not 3 talking city business, let's just talk this out, not trying to get anywhere, still a coma issue. But for it to be a serial meeting, at least one of the parties does want to get to, you know, an agreement, a final decision. We'll come back to that. We got an example on the serial meetings. There are exceptions to the coma. One is quasi-judicial, so your role as a city commissioner, there are certain things that you're doing that are legislative when you're adopting an ordinance, but there are others that are quasi-judicial where it's almost judge-like, a zoning decision, certain environmental appeals, other administrative appeals. This is not an executive session. It's essentially you can recess. City staff can, you know, make you aware of when that's applicable. But if you ever have an item where you're saying, hey, can we do this behind closed doors? That's a good question for staff. Sometimes the answer is no. Tonight we're doing the code enforcement for business entities. That's not, you know, to have that discussion, to debate it would not be appropriate for an executive session. But if there's an appeal where you have to decide like a zoning decision, you can recess. There's certain factors that need to be inbounds and others that can be obviously behind closed doors. So separate from that recess would be an executive session. You guys are familiar with those. There's about 3 or 4 that we do frequently. This is a recess into a closed executive meeting. There's certain permissible justifications that are laid out in the statute. Again, only some of them routinely apply to this board. No binding action can be taken in executive session. You can reach a consensus. You guys can argue an issue and, well, it looks like there's general support here, or let's talk about it more to see if there is general support. But that decision cannot be taken in the executive session. You would then come out and vote on it. So if you were, say, talking about a development agreement, you guys could discuss and make arguments for and against. And then once you get to a point where, okay, it looks like there's enough support to approve this, it isn't approved back there, we come and we make an official vote for the public. This goes over some of the executive sessions and just the public policy behind them. Non-elected personnel, we want to encourage people to work in, you know, the public sector. And if everything had to be handled in an open and public meeting, it would obviously dissuade that. So talking about a non-elected city staff member behind closed doors is permissible. Obviously, attorney-client, anything that's privileged communication can be in an executive session. For all of the executive sessions that I can think of, there's no requirement. I don't need to be back there. Daniela doesn't need to be back there. No one from staff needs to be back there. If the 5 city commissioners want to have an executive session, they can. This would be the exception. You don't want to go attorney-client, not bring an attorney. So bring an attorney. You don't even have to bring me, but bring an attorney where you can establish attorney-client relationship. Justifications, data or trade secrets. Sometimes you see this where there could be a business entity that wants to convey information, a trade secret or data related to their finances, and they want to do that not in an open public. And you guys can see the public policy behind that, to induce that exchange of information that doesn't have to be in an open and public meeting. Acquisition of real estate, obviously, if we had to discuss every time we wanted to purchase a piece of property in an open record, the price would go up considerably. So the legislative provision here provides that mechanism where we can discuss that behind closed doors. And again, that public policy doesn't go the other way. If we want to be if it's the sale, we couldn't go to an executive session, right? Because we want that to be open and public and let the market hear about that property. Security measures, obviously, I think we'll be having at least one or a series of these to talk about security and those issues. And obviously, you guys can see the public policy behind that some of those things don't need to be aired in an open and public meeting. That would be security measures, city hall, or any questions that you guys have about security. It wouldn't have to be in an open and public meeting. Denise kind of touched on this. It's not a criminal violation to violate the coma. I think, we've laid out what it is. Obviously, mandated training is not good. I think the biggest thing would just be like the reputational harm or the look that it would give to the city to violate it. We obviously want to be well above and beyond in terms of our compliance with the coma. So that would be probably our biggest penalty. I'll do a couple scenarios just to work through, and feel free to jump in. So Commissioner Jones makes posts on the County Concerns Citizens Facebook page that the commission, which is a 3-member body, made appointments to the county hospital board during his planned absence. In response, Commissioner Johnson, a different commissioner, makes posts explaining votes in response to comments from other members of the Facebook group. They both engage in an online discussion about the past meeting and board appointments. So is that a meeting? What do you think? And why?
Majority.
You got a majority, well, you've got a quorum, right? You got 2 out of 3.
And then business of what?
Business of the city is the third one, the appointment.
Interactive.
And interactive. So you would have a meeting exactly on those 3 components. Scenario 2, Commissioner Stevenson has 5 courtside tickets to a KU basketball game, invites the other 4 members to attend the game with her. The 5 commissioners carpool to Lawrence together. The commissioners talk about KU basketball, but do not discuss city business during the trip. And I'll say, I used to have the slide was Chiefs, but since I'm giving the presentation during playoff time, like it didn't seem realistic, so we thought we'd make it KU. We wanted a reasonable, realistic scenario. So do we have a meeting here?
No, but the optics sure are bad.
Optics are horrible, yeah. And
It doesn't look good.
It doesn't look good at all. You definitely have a quorum. You're 5 for 5. You have interactive communication talking about basketball, but
Any onlooker would go, yeah, right.
absolutely. Technically, not a coma violation, but I have the same note as Leroy. Definitely consider the optics of that.
So that's like a he said, she said. If somebody would see that and report it, and then you'd have to have a meeting, and it'd be your word against whoever's,
Sure,
the 5 of you.
Sure.
To say, well, we didn't discuss.
sure.
How does somebody,
And
how do they know?
Yeah, and I think all we can do as staff is tell you what the rules are and be aware of. You could put yourself in a situation that's not a coma violation that looks like it could be, or people could consider to be one. Scenario number 3, open public meeting. Staff presents a proposal to implement light rail within the city. Commission tables the item for further research. Commissioner Mike is indifferent on the project, but is curious about how the other commissioners feel about the issue. Mike speaks with Travis. Travis reports that he is also indifferent.
Don't follow this right now.
Okay.
It's okay, it's okay, just
I
don't.
wanted to talk about Billy Ray.
Yeah,
Sorry,
sorry.
Billy Ray is out.
Okay.
Commissioner Mike then speaks with Commissioner Megan. Commissioner Megan is in favor of the project and tells Commissioner Mike why he should support the project. So you have a couple meetings there. Do you have a meeting?
No.
You don't, because you only have 2, right? But you have a serial meeting, and I'll show you do. So obviously you didn't have a quorum with Mike and Travis, and you didn't have a quorum with Mike and Megan. So obviously for Travis, he only had 1 meeting with 1 person. So he should think everything is fine. And you could see the same thing with Megan. Now Mike has met with multiple commissioners, so it should cue that there could be a serial meeting issue. Here, you did have a series of interactive communication. They did collectively involve a majority because you got to 3 total. It's got a common topic. It's concerning the business affairs of the public body and intended by any or all of the participants. It was just 1 that wanted to get to an end game, and that's what was detrimental here. It would be on a matter that requires binding action, would need to be approved by the city commission. So obviously the takeaway here is just a one-on-one meeting is okay in and of itself. You have to be aware of a second meeting that could trigger a serial meeting.
So in that scenario,
Yeah.
when the AG comes in, who's going to get in trouble? If
Yeah,
You don't know that.
Everybody.
yeah,
Yeah, but
They don't point.
it's a violation of the city commission.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you're saying the two that were
well, I mean,
totally in the dark, if they do
you
the
talk
training.
to one person and you have no idea,
Right,
how do you prevent?
right.
I'm just going to stop talking to everybody.
Right?
Well,
That's a safe.
I will just tell you that we have had something like this before prior to a meeting, and we had one commissioner going around and saying, "Hey, I'm going to vote this way on this item." Okay, said that to you, not that they really did, but said that. Then they went to you and said, "Hey, I've talked to though, and I think that we're both going to vote this way." That was a serial meeting, even though we had a meeting scheduled that night. That was a serial meeting. So
So those have to be public, correct?
it
I
is
mean, you've
public,
got 'em.
but the commission was up on the bench there prior to the meeting starting. So even though there is a meeting that day, you were still having a serial meeting in amongst yourselves because one commissioner was talking to two of you about the same issue.
If the meeting starts, if it's noticed up for 7 o'clock, if it's 6:55 and 3 commissioners want to talk city business at 6:55, that would be a coma problem. Because
Okay,
it wouldn't be during the notice up meeting. Now, if 2 commissioners want to talk 6:55, no problem. City business, it's all good. Once you have 3, you've got a problem. And once you have a serial component, you have a problem.
The serial component was what was in that one. Yeah.
When was the last time that this body, in your memory, got written up by the AG or got turned?
In my tenure, that has not happened.
I didn't think so.
No. Because we're very strict with you.
Yeah.
We appreciate it.
yes, and you do a very good job
Do you
of
want me-
keeping us on,
Do you
keeping
want
us
me
in
to count-
check.
Count up how many times you've reprimanded me or?
Yeah, right, or not.
It's probably more than once, right?
Told to. More than one.
Count more on more than one
Well,
hand.
And it's actually a positive thing.
And yeah,
Because it keeps that thought at the forefront instead of just a slip of, you
Yeah.
kind of forget and you're
Yeah.
talking about something.
it's easy.
it's a good thing.
It's easy to do. It's just that the optics of it is the one thing that we really don't want to happen, and we don't want decisions made beforehand. So we really do
Well, I know
try
it's
and cover
happened a
that.
number of times that 3 of us are out front
I know.
walking after a meeting. You come walking, hey.
And again, that's an optics issue, not necessarily an open meetings
So-
issue.
Yeah.
Right.
But it's okay to, like, if I'm, say, am not sure where I stand in a topic, can I call like Rich and get his info and then maybe call Kathy or something and be like, hey, where are you at with this or where, or,
So the
right?
first call is no problem because you only have 2. At that point, once you implicate that second call, now you have 3.
Right.
So if any of those 3 are trying to get to an end game or a result,
Okay,
it's a serial meeting, and that's the problem. It's not noticed at.
okay.
I would say too, if you feel frustrated by the confines of the coma, talk to staff. We have certain we can call a special meeting. We can see if an executive session is appropriate. Don't feel like, oh, I have to wait till our next meeting and those things. There are opportunities if we talk with staff and figure out if there's a fix.
Okay, that's good to know.
To clarify, let me, can you hear me?
If she was calling me to try and understand how to calculate a mill levy,
Yeah.
not a mill levy that we're looking at, not even talking about budget, like how did we do that last year? Teach me how to
Complete
calculate-
non-issue.
Complete non-issue.
Right.
Okay.
Right. And I wanted to clarify that if you wanted to call Rich and talk about mill levies and get some explanation, and then you picked up the phone and say, hey, Leroy, can we talk about, Hillsborough Industries? Even though she's having conversations with different commissioners, they're not the same topic. That's totally
Different topic.
okay.
Totally in bounds as well.
Okay.
Sorry if I wasn't clear on
Right.
that.
So the topic is very important.
Yes.
But remember, we got great staff that we can go there and then
Yeah.
Yeah, if it's not the same issue and you're not trying to reach an agreement, those communications are great and in bounds, 100%.
and I would just say that that's why when we send emails and we always say, do not reply all, because then you are in violation.
Right. And again, meetings with staff, there's no obviously, city staff meetings, not subject to Cora. We're not part of, the governing body. Your meetings with the city manager, city clerk, myself, if it's less than 5, or less than 3, it's not a problem.
Not Cora, but still Coma.
Coma, sorry, did I say?
No, I'm just clarifying. It's not subject to open, wait, no, wait, I'm
Open
sorry. I said
records.
it backwards. It's not subject to open meeting, but it is still subject to open records.
If there was work,
Could-
if there was staff work product created through that communication.
Yes.
I mean, Cora, the answer is going to be it depends and all those things, but if a record's
Okay.
created, it could be subject. But yeah, purely Coma, no, you having a meeting with city staff, it's not a problem.
Okay, so there doesn't have to be a limit of city staff.
Unlimited.
no.
We have city staff meetings behind closed doors.
I mean, with the
regularly.
commissioner, like with.
Right, no, we're not elected, so therefore that makes a big difference. We're staff, paid staff, you're elected officials, you're the ones that can't speak to each other. We don't have a quorum
Yeah,
requirement.
Go
I'm
back
saying I
to,
wanted to talk to like five different staff members at one time.
no problem.
Yeah,
Okay.
no problem. Yeah.
You have a heart attack over there?
This is Brian's chair.
Okay.
That's a horrible feeling when you feel that chair going out from under you.
Okay. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the use of social media as an elected official and some legal issues to consider around that. My disclaimer is I am not an attorney. Our attorney is here, and he can jump in on any legal issues as he sees fit. Our elected officials are not bound by the city's social media policy, but there are still some legal issues that you should keep in mind, or that we recommend that you keep in mind. This is not meant to deter you from using social media as a communication tool. It's great if you want to do that, but you should be aware that if you use it as an elected official, separate from your personal usage, that there are some legal issues you should keep in mind. Social media is considered a public forum based on case law. What that means is that you have opened up a forum for the public to come and interact and share their opinions. And so therefore you trigger First Amendment issues. So there has been case law that elected officials or even other public entities cannot delete comments or block people from using their pages, because to do so would be to take away that person's First Amendment right to interact with their government or their elected official. The Supreme Court finally ruled on a social media case, Linke v. Freed, and established kind of a two-part test for when a public official is speaking on behalf of the public agency. And that is that the elected official must possess the actual authority to speak on the state's behalf on the matter in question and be purporting to exercise that authority when engaging in social media posts. So this case was about a public official using an account, I think it was on Facebook, to interact with the public, talking about official business. And this public official had blocked some people who were getting into an antagonistic back and forth on the account, decided to block some people, and those people sued and said that this was a violation of their First Amendment rights. And so that's what this test kind of establishes. So that's where you need to be very careful about whether you're acting as a private individual on your Facebook account or whether you're acting as an agent of the city when you're speaking about city business. basically, if you're acting as a personal, with your personal account as a private citizen, you can block whoever you want. But if you're acting as an official of the city, that's where you get into some potential legal trouble with people's First Amendment rights. So our advice is not to delete users' comments or posts, even if you perceive them as negative, if you are operating an official account, that is. We recommend that you do not block any users from your page. You can have a comment policy that prohibits obscenity, threats of violence, etc. We can provide you an example if you want one. And we recommend that you be very cautious about using your personal account to discuss city business, because you don't want to cross that line into establishing a public forum from your personal account. I have seen elected officials use their personal accounts to conduct little public opinion polls and things like that. Not this body, but others. And to me, it just looks very dicey. They're really opening themselves up to to establishing a public forum on their personal account. And you may think, well, I don't really care. It doesn't bother me if people are negative. I won't block anyone or delete anyone. It's fine. The problem is sometimes you get into a situation where you have a commenter who gets very antagonistic and borderline harassing. And that's when these elected officials finally say, okay, I can't take it. I'm blocking these people. And that's when they can get into trouble.
Can I think this is a good time to ask. I think I'm correct that you can have a blanket no comment policy. That's okay. But you can't single out individuals.
Once you open up the comments,
yeah,
comments
it's
are there,
either
but
all
yes,
comments or no
nothing.
comment. But
Exactly.
Okay, because that was Kansas Farm Bureau campaign school. They were just like, why would you even have comments? They're useless. Just turn them all off and use it as more of a. That would be allowed. That.
Right.
Like to make posts.
You
Make
could.
posts, but just stock comments.
Yeah.
Like
or what?
Aaron can talk about it, but the city social media, we do open it up for comments. And as she says, we're not deleting anything unless it falls under these very narrow exceptions. And it sure isn't.
Yeah.
It's being critical of the city, that goes. But yes, we could elect to say just no responses and we're just sending information out. But once we create that forum by allowing that conversation, you're in.
What about sharing city posts? Is there any problem on our personal or?
I would
that
say
opens
that
up
that's okay.
Comments too, when you do that, but
Sure.
I don't know.
There's a lot of gray area.
Sure.
I would suggest that if the city account posted something and you shared it to your personal account, that's probably fine.
Yeah,
Do you have
I
a
agree.
different
No,
opinion?
No, I agree.
Just don't comment.
I think it's whether or not you're now speaking on behalf of the city and creating a public forum,
Right.
in which
Right.
case you would have some concerns about, you've now opened up the forum.
I think if you shared the post and said, isn't this a cool program that we have here at the city? Or I'm glad to be part of the city organization, that's fine. If you were to post it and say, what does everybody think about this issue that's coming up at the next meeting?
Or I'm going to vote this way, and I need you to convince the others to go with me. That's when you're really getting into.
Dicey,
Right.
yeah.
Please contact your other elected
Yeah.
officials. Then I think you're getting a little dicey.
How does it on Facebook? You can set posts to be public or friends only. How does that? That automatically limits who can even see it.
Right.
Is that?
I mean, I have my personal opinion, but we know what opinions are like.
Is it?
Have an
I wanna know.
official commissioner
Yeah.
one, and then have your private one.
Yeah, I would be concerned if your official commissioner one was limited to a select
Right.
few individuals, because now you've got a forum that's only open to select folks.
I would agree. I think if you're discussing city business on your personal page that the vast majority of the public can't see, I think that in itself is an issue, probably. That's why our advice is always going to be just keep it clean, have a separation if you can.
Wish there was a way that you could have somebody like that tries to friend you, that you could just bounce them over to your commissioner one
I know, well, that's
off of your personal one.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you're like, no, and then you gotta go try and.
Should we not be, like, voicing our opinion about something that, I mean, that it's public, but maybe, you know, should we not be voicing opinion about it, or?
I think you're always allowed, just as like the public's allowed to voice their opinion.
You
I think
still
you're
have your
allowed
own
to
First
voice
Amendment
your-
rights.
You're allowed to voice yours. What you don't want to do is you don't want to be the origin point of a serial meeting or the origin point of a forum by going the extra step of encouraging that feedback loop coming back to you or involving the other members of the body.
or opening up a public discussion, saying what you think the commission should do, and then someone says something that's a little nasty and you want to delete it, and now we have a First Amendment issue for them, right? But yeah, you should be, you can, obviously, you have First Amendment rights, that's what Aaron's saying. It's creating that forum and then trying to regulate that forum or those responses that you get. That's where it would get tough. Once you open it up, now it's open for responses and their criticisms and everything else.
So if you are very interested in using Facebook, for example, as a platform for that, we would encourage you to create, if you don't already have, a city commissioner page.
I don't use it very often, but
Yeah.
I should.
As Chris said, it's a very limited number of categories of comments that we can delete based on the First Amendment case law, and that includes spam or malware, actual threats of violence, the encouragement of illegal acts, pornography, and defamation. And I say pornography rather than obscenity because when people see obscenity, sometimes they think profanity.
Right.
And it's not the same. Profanity, the Supreme Court has said the mere presence of profanity is not enough to violate someone's First Amendment rights. So we do allow cursing in our comments. And defamation is different from personal attacks. I've seen some people have policies that say they don't allow personal attacks, but the case law is clear that just being mean in the comments to someone, even if you call them out by name, is not enough. Defamation has a legal definition, and that includes saying something that is verifiably untrue, factually untrue, that would damage the person's reputation. So it's a pretty high standard. So we very rarely delete comments from our social media accounts. I'll mention social media, like Chris touched on earlier, is subject to COMA and CORA. There have been cities that have gotten in trouble with elected officials debating things in comments on Facebook. I just saw that the city of Destin, Florida passed a social media policy that prohibited officials from commenting
Oh, yeah.
at all in order to avoid potential open meetings violations. I think that's a little extreme. And the mayor had said, I'm just going to keep doing it, and what are you going to do? Quora comes into play sometimes because if you are using an account on social media as an official account, your posts could be subject to Quora. So we would recommend that if you do post about city business, that you do not only delete other people's comments, but don't delete your own posts, because those could be open records. Here at the city, we very rarely delete a post. We try not to, based on just transparency. There have been a very few number of cases where we did delete a post. We do have an archiving service for the city official accounts, so we can always pull records. So again, our advice is to be very cautious about discussions of city business with your fellow commissioners. via social media, email or text message. Generally speaking, do not delete public posts, comments, or messages. Be very cautious about using your personal accounts to discuss city business. And when in doubt about a particular issue, please feel free to call me or Chris and ask for our advice. And I wanted to touch briefly on social media public input and public sentiment, because if you've been on Facebook, if you've been on the city's Facebook account or the police department's Facebook account, you've probably seen a lot of negativity. And so I pulled some information from FlashVote. They are a national government survey company. They do statistically valid scientific surveying for cities and counties. What you tend to hear on social media most often is from the people at the far ends of the bell curve. You've got the I hate it and the I love it people. And it can feel like the rest of the public is this, that it's 90% haters. But it could also be 90% lovers, and you're only hearing from the 10% haters. You just don't know. FlashVote, based on what they have seen in comparing social media and online sentiment versus their scientific surveying, they ask often the question in their presentations, how often does social media sentiment match the community as a whole? And what they have found is that it's 5% of the time. And they in fact have found that 70% of the time, the online sentiment is the opposite of the community as a whole. And so governing bodies would in fact be better off doing the opposite of what the online crowd is saying. So I tell you that only because I know it can be really difficult to make a decision as a governing body reading the comments if people are very negative. And you have to understand that that is not necessarily representative of the community as a whole.
Lift the head.
Oh.
I found the Easter egg.
Oh.
The other thing we wanted to touch on is that you will often get citizen complaints via social media, email, in person at the grocery store, wherever you are in life. People will approach you with their personal issues. And we just want you to remember that you as an elected official are a trusted resource for people, and that is very valuable, but you are not a customer service representative. And so we would really recommend that you let people know they can submit concerns or complaints through our website or through our Newton Connect mobile app. You can guide them to the appropriate department to talk to about their issue, or you can always just send people directly to the city manager and she will figure out who needs to get in touch with them. If you have a relationship with this person, we are more than willing to keep you in the loop on the issue and make sure you are able to have that accountability to make sure it was handled. But for you to try to handle it yourself, it's just very awkward sometimes because you may not know the ins and outs of how to handle the problem. You, as a single commissioner, cannot direct any of our staff to take action. That has to come from their supervisors. So we just ask that for efficiency and effectiveness that you handle citizen complaints in this way. And then I wanted to touch briefly on speaking with the news media. Speaking of your First Amendment rights, you are free to speak to the news media about any and all topics whenever you like. However, we have kind of, as a policy, allowed the mayor kind of the first crack at giving those interviews and speaking on behalf of the commission. when news media wants to talk about a City of Newton news story. I and Daniela and the department heads are always available. If you do get a phone call, especially from TV news, that can be kind of anxiety inducing to do those on-camera interviews. So we're very happy to help you with interview prep or the talking points on the issue if you need that. And when you are talking to citizens or the news media, we would just remind you that you as a commissioner are sometimes privy to confidential information. That could be information shared during executive sessions about economic development prospects or city personnel matters, or it could be in emails coming from staff that are labeled confidential. And so we would just encourage you to use caution when speaking with the public or the media and keeping in mind what is confidential and what isn't. And that includes not forwarding or copying emails and using caution if you happen to share an email address with a spouse who also has access or other family members. Okay, what questions do you have?
What? I think this was informative. I mean,
Good
I don't
reminder.
recall getting this when I first started. So,
Yeah, I think we actually didn't
okay,
do this last time.
it would have been super helpful.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I think I mostly do a good job about not, engaging too much about city stuff online. But it's so easy, though, to, you see somebody's comment and go, and automatically your thumb goes, like, because you're like, oh, yeah, I get that. I agree with that. And your automatically goes like, and you'd even think twice about it. And I mean, that recently happened to me, and someone brought it to my attention, and I was like, oh my God. So I'm like, I need to take a break. So I took a social media break, to kind of reevaluate my social media time. But yeah, it's pretty easy to do. So I get that. So this was very informative. I appreciate it.
I have
Thank
a
you.
question.
Sure.
So since we're nonpartisan, what is our freedom to comment on Facebook posts or things that we see that we really agree with? And maybe because we are nonpartisan here, I think each and every one of us have some sort of party affiliation, and we're going to have a tendency to like certain posts or articles or whatever and want to comment on them or give a like or whatever. What are we okay to be able to do that? Because we are not, if we were partisan, would it be worse? Or, I mean, I just kind of see it as that's our personal.
Yeah, I don't see any, I'll let them jump in, but I don't see any restrictions on you speaking on national political issues
Okay.
for whatever
Okay.
political ideology you have.
Okay.
You still have First Amendment, Aaron said that,
Yeah,
you still have
okay.
First Amendment rights.
Okay.
I think the concern is when that goes now to speaking city business, and now you've created a local forum, and now you don't like what this guy's saying, and you're going to block him or you're going to delete his comments. I think that's where our big concern has, but not about you
Yeah.
speaking about any sort of national issue at all.
Okay, well, I do
partisan
have
or
a
not.
city commission page, and then I do have a personal page. And just for the record, when I was getting all that trashing a few years ago, if you remember that, I called Aaron, and you gave me the very best advice, exactly what you shared here. I called the Ethics Commission at the state level. They didn't know what to do. They said, we don't know how to handle that. And I thought I told them I thought that was pretty irresponsible on their part, especially since they're the ones that hand out all this paperwork. Then I called the Secretary of State. They didn't have an answer either. And so I thought, well, it's right in my own backyard, and I appreciated that counsel that you provided. And so, yeah, the threats of lawsuits for wanting to block people, I honestly did not understand the blocking. Because when other people are commenting on your page and they're doing so in a decent, respectful way, they don't probably understand that when you have those nasty, foul-mouthed, filthy posts on your page, they don't understand why you let them stay there.
Right.
They don't understand that.
Just delete it.
Yeah, they
Right.
think you ought to be able to
That's
just
what they
delete
think.
it. So I do remember going back and saying something about, I can't do that, but I don't have to respond to you.
Right.
Other than I'm not going to. And they
Right.
threatened to sue me anyway. So, I mean, there's just some really nasty folks out there. And so that was the very best advice, especially when your state officials don't know.
Well, good. I hope they do know now. It's been
Yeah.
a little while. I mean,
so.
these issues are more and more common. We get comments like that too from people saying, "Why don't you just delete these comments? We don't want to see this." And
What
Yeah,
about
it's
unfortunate.
when you have, like, if you're campaigning and you're on the commission, but you're campaigning for your upcoming election, and people start, I mean, all this hateful or even, just disgusting stuff. Is that the same? I mean, is it?
if you're in office now, then your page is an elected official's page.
Okay.
If you are campaigning before you've been elected, then you are not a government official yet.
Okay.
So, is that correct, Chris?
I agree, yeah.
Yeah, before you're elected, you're a private citizen who's just trying to become an elected official, and therefore you could delete comments if you wanted to. Once you're an elected official, you're subject to these laws and the First Amendment. So even if you're campaigning, you are an elected official.
Okay. That's good to know.
That's true. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else?
Anything else?
No.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.